Hello and welcome to the Atmosphere Electric. There's Fran. I'm Rich. How are you, bud?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right,
Good.
yeah.
Yeah, good. We're not going to be bragging about our results from last week, are we? I don't think it was
Well,
another stellar.
that's why I'm only all right, to be honest. We took a bit of a battering, but we did say it looked a horrible game week.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just cover ourselves by always saying that because, yeah, it's a tough one. Obviously, we made the mistake of backing the early kickoff on a Saturday. What a great result that was for Aston Villa.
It was a fantastic result, and actually, I thought they fully deserved it. I was watching it with a few Arsenal and Villa friends, having a good laugh. Obviously, when the last minute winner went in as well, all the Arsenal lads walked out the door. So I had a good time watching it. But I thought, for the last 20 minutes, Villa actually dominated the game and fully deserved it, which was actually, you thought Arsenal would have come on strong, really. But it seemed Arsenal were quite happy to take a point, but Villa weren't.
The thing that worried me was the reaction of the Arsenal players. Obviously, I don't want you to be happy and celebrating that you've just conceded a lot, but the hitting of the floor, the collapse in the, you know, it just made me feel like maybe mentally they're not as strong as I thought they were.
It definitely seemed to take a lot out of them, didn't they? But I think, like you said last week, I think they are made of different stuff, so I do expect them to bounce back. But I think when you lose like in that manner in the last second as well, like they made about 6 blocks, didn't they, before the final shot went in? So I think they were just absolutely gutted in the manner of the goal as opposed to the minute as well.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, we don't need to cover it in too much detail for a whole bunch of reasons, but because other people have done it way better than we ever could. But obviously, Mo Salah's come out and I guess spoken honestly, right? That's what he's done. Do we hate him for it, or do we think he's got it about right?
I think you'll either find people on the extreme of both sides. Of people either hate Mo Salah now or they love of what they love him for what he's come out and said. I like honesty in the game. If I'm being honest, I like him to come out and say that he feels like he's been thrown in the bus. I think the person who comes out the worst in this is Arne Slot, though. I don't know if you saw his interview yesterday. I thought he came out dreadfully. They were trying to give him a bit of a lesson in man management, and he was just not having any of it. He was almost saying that he needs to come out and apologise before he's willing to speak to him. And I was thinking, your stock has gone all the way up to there for winning the Premier League, but it's dropping very, very quickly. One, with the results you're getting recently, but also your man management doesn't seem to be there. And I think that's a big part of the problem. Why?
Well, the big result for them last night in the Champions League, which will no doubt put some of those, but when you look at the team that they're putting out now, it feels like a distant memory from the teams that they were putting out. What feels like only 3 or 4 months ago. Like it's a shadow of the team, isn't it? So I think it's going to be a long, or whatever happens here, a long window. And the only way I can see that Liverpool I meant season, not window. Windows coming around. Where I'm going with that is, I think that the only way that Liverpool can probably put that right is let Salah go to Saudi and get Semenyo in. I think that would be a way of softening the blow and getting an upgrade back into the squad that's relevant now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit torn on Semenyo. I do really like him. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a great player, but is he the next Mo Salah? Probably not.
No.
Is he an upgrade on what Salah is at the minute? I think Salah's legs are gone, if we're being honest. But if they can get some money in for him and replace him with a player, whether it's Semenyo, whoever it is, we were speaking about Rodrigo, weren't we, and others who they could possibly look at. If they can go and get somebody, I mean, you spoke about Leao as well, possibly getting Rafael Leao and someone like that to come in and replace him seems like the most sensible thing to do. Seems like the trust had completely gone. Try and replace him. Get those wages off your books. You might be able to spread it over 3 or 4 players as well with the amount that he's on. And I'd possibly look to do the same with Van Dijk. And by the way, I don't know if you've seen our Van Dijk TikTok. It blew up. Absolutely blew up. Liverpool fans going mad saying he's not been that bad. He's been dreadful.
It's easy to get people to go mad in it these days. It's not difficult. Everybody takes everything way too seriously, way too personally. Just chill out, have an opinion, happy to be different. As we proved last week, we're not always right. Sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. Let's see how we get on this week. Because again, caveat, and I mean this actually sincerely, like I don't even know where you go with some of these results, starting with the up and down Chelsea versus the up and down Everton. Both teams lose games. I don't think they're going to lose. Win games. I don't think they're going to win. Do we start to just talk about actually sort of home advantage being kind of what sways us to a result or not? Because I can't really know what version of these two teams are going to turn up.
I would agree on home advantage, but I'm also going to try and look at, when I say form, we used to look at form from like a game of 5 perspective. I'm more now going down the one and two results and seeing if I can get any shock results, because that seems to be what's happening more often than not. So yeah, I agree. It looks a very tough way. I'm trying to build my £5 challenge here on the fly, and I've got 2 teams at the minute, so I could be earning about £3.
Well, that would be better than most weeks. I mean, you look at, so we'll talk about form. Chelsea have drawn 2 and lost 1 of the last 3. Everton have won 2, lost 1. Everton have won 4 of the last 5. Everton are one of the form teams. You kind of put them in the likes of City in terms of what they're doing. But I just feel like maybe Chelsea, again, it's winning 5 or winning 4 or 5 is one thing, but it's about who now, obviously the Manchester United result was a great result, but again, Manchester United aren't exactly kind of top of the tree. Everything did get pumped by Newcastle. And Chelsea obviously just come off the back of another defeat in the Champions League, but you just feel like Chelsea got a little bit more quality than some of the teams that they've been beating recently. And Chelsea need to bounce back right now. They are missing Caicedo because it's the last round of his 3-match suspension. Do you think that's had a massive impact in terms of how Chelsea have been inconsistent in the Premier League over the last couple of games?
I think it's had a massive impact. He's been one of their standout performers, hasn't he, this season? From where when he first signed, he was, if we're being honest, he was quite poor, wasn't he? To where he is now, he's possibly their most important player. Cole Palmer is starting to come back, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
He started to make some minutes and he's coming back. So I would imagine that he'll possibly slot into the starting lineup, I would have thought. And they do seem to have another couple of injuries coming back. So, I mean, I'm agreeing with you on your original comment of home advantage. I can see a slight Chelsea win here. So I'm going for 2-1, and that is on the basis of home advantage.
I've got exactly the same score for exactly the same reason. In fact, I've got quite a lot of 2-1s either way.
So have I. So have I.
I just, I think it's just going to be one of them weeks where I look down the list and literally, except for probably Villa, I could see anybody win, and Arsenal. I could see anybody winning any game really. Okay, so we've both gone 2-1 Chelsea. Obviously, Delap picking up an injury last week. I think he's going to be out. Obviously, João Pedro needs to start scoring. I think, again, Chelsea defensively have got some kind of players missing. So, not beyond the realms of possibility for Everton to do better than a slight defeat. But I just think that I don't know where Everton are going to get the amount of chances against Chelsea at home that they would need to win the game. There's not many 3 o'clock kickoffs on Saturday, is there? It's another one of those sort of funny game weeks, obviously, with there being European football. Last week, it felt like they were all 3 o'clock kickoffs. This week, hardly any. And one of the most interesting ones, we just spoke about them, Liverpool host Brighton at 3 o'clock at Anfield. Again, man, how difficult is this to predict based on the fact that where Liverpool are, based on the noise around us? Brighton are a tough team to predict as well. Brighton have been to Anfield in the last few years and got some good results. This could be absolutely anything, couldn't it?
It could. And for that reason, I am going for Liverpool 1, Brighton 2. If you look at the trends of how Liverpool are performing, you go back a month ago, 6 weeks, whatever it was, Liverpool beat Real Madrid in the Champions League, and everyone went, wow, what a performance, they're back. They've just, who was it they beat yesterday? I can't remember.
Man.
Beat Inter Milan. Liverpool are back. What a great performance in the Champions League. If you look at off the back of those 2 games, they lost a lot of Premier League games. Brighton are a team that are just going under the radar, for being honest. They seem to be picking up good wins in games that you don't think they are. So I'm going to, for 7-2 over 7-10 at home, I'm going for Brighton. So 1-2 for me.
I've gone 1-1. But genuinely, all 3 could happen. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Brighton have done, like you say, done some really good things. The league is a really peculiar league table this year, and it feels weirder than ever, really, when you look at, one win could propel Brighton into the top 4 if other results go their way. Obviously, being the early kick-off in terms of the 3 o'clocks, there's not many of them. If other results go their way, they could in theory be top 4, or by the end of the weekend they could be 13th, 14th. Like, it's just a crazy one result either way can really have a massive sway on those teams from really Brentford up, really.
Yeah, it's mad. Like, so you look how tight that league is. one win, you can go up 4 or 5 places. It's completely mad. And even and I'm looking at Burnley. I know they're 4 points, so they'll need more than one win. But even Burnley upwards to Fulham, it's not too big of a stretch to get teams back in the game, with the exception of the world's worst ever Premier League team, Wolves. Bless them.
Well, we'll come to Burnley and Fulham next, because obviously that does have some massive connotations down the bottom of the table. And you're quite right. If Burnley were to win that, that would be bringing Fulham back into the mix, regardless of what happens, because, I could see some of the other teams around there picking up points. So Fulham definitely need to be looking, as we said last week, over their shoulders. Brighton are one of those, we kind of always kind of wax lyrical about Brighton, but like you said, your point a minute ago is actually quite relevant. They have gone under the radar, haven't they, this season, in the sense that they're in that clump of teams. They're not because they're not kind of over, like they're not in the top 4, but they're not in the bottom 4. They're not overachieving. If they can put a run together over Christmas, so they can find themselves really nicely positioned with a nice little window of actually having a run for Europe, couldn't they?
Well, I think the point about them going under the radar, I think, is a valid one, because in previous seasons, everyone's waxed lyrical about Brighton. The transfers in, the transfers out. I thought this summer's signings were quite low key. Whereas, in some cases, they bought somebody from Argentina, and there's been massive, like, sort of plaudits around their transfer business. It's been very low key. And I thought that this season was going to be a stabilisation season, which I think they've done. But like you said, they've got the January window now. They're in a good position. If they can go and get a couple of players, they could have a real shot at making Europe here, because a lot of the teams around them don't look very good.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the fact that they lost João Pedro, you forget that he was there last season. João Pedro was obviously a massive player for them. They lost Dringa, again, another Estepan, who I thought, although he's not doing great things with AC Milan, I thought he was a very good Premier League left back. You talk about even like Tarek Lamptey, Inceso, Buonanotte. They've lost some players that actually, were in that team, and they haven't really kind of, for me, smashed it out the park with an in. Like you look at them all, they're all good players. Don't get me wrong, but none of them are actually sort of coming and stamp their. Maybe the Croppier, maybe a little bit, but actually they're now just becoming just a solid team, aren't they? Where it doesn't really matter who's in the team, who's out of the team. They've got a couple of good players. The goalkeeper's doing really well. Obviously, Van Hacker, I know he scored a couple of own goals, but he's doing really well. But just one or two little bits of magic dust. Obviously, Danny Welbeck overachieving as well is what's probably helping him out the most, because actually most of his other teams haven't got a number 9 that's doing what Danny Welbeck's doing.
I think what you've just said there is right. So all of their signings have hit the ground running, but they're just solid.
Yeah.
None of them are like the Casados that have come in. Beliebers, where they've come in and they've gone, wow, we've got real talent here. And I think they just need to try and net, and most teams need this, so don't get me wrong, but if they can get one of those players, and like you said, possibly a forward, they need to be looking beyond Danny Welbeck. I know he's aging in reverse, but it can't keep going on, can it? He's doing unbelievably well. But if they can get a striker and let all the other players just keep bedding in, keep performing to their level, 7 levels and higher, they've got a real good chance.
Yeah, especially when you look at how average most of the league is at the moment as well. It's not like they're having to go and chase some of these kind of power ranges in the past. And again, 5th would get them Champions League. 6th or 7th would be amazing. So, we talk about transfer windows. Can't believe I'm saying this out loud, but Liverpool, who spent whatever millions they spent in the summer, they have to go in January, don't they? Regardless of what happens with Salah, they have to go again in January. They need probably 2 that come straight into the first team as well.
I was just sitting here thinking, where would you try and go to get those players? And I think they need 4 or 5.
Well,
like you said, like obviously you can't do that in January unless you are willing to pay over the top prices. But they do need 4 or 5, don't they? In reality, they possibly need to move 3 or 4 on again. So huge work for them to do. But January is a horrible time to do business for teams like Liverpool. For teams like Brighton, where you're looking to pinch players for a few million, develop them and stuff like. I know you got the Brighton tax on the now, so it's not as easy as it used to be. But it's a lot easier for your Brightons. Teams in and around mid-table. Liverpool, if Liverpool come in and you've got a player, you have 10, 20 million on it immediately.
Yeah, that's true. But they're going to have to play the game. And for me, if I was, I'd be looking at Mark Gahey, I'd be looking at Anton Semenyo, and I'd be looking at overpaying, because obviously Mark Gahey don't have 6 months left of his contract. Give him 25 million quid. That's still a good value for who he is and what they need. Semenyo, given the 60, because he's got a release clause. So again, that makes that a bit different. So again, I think your £65 million release clause, 85 million quid, you get an England centre back, you get an international quality left winger, and you've improved the squad massively. And I think that's all they can do really in January. I think that would be sensible for me. That would be sensible.
Yeah, and you just mentioned Gray, unless they go and look around at players who are out of contract that they can sling a bit of money on and try and get them moved on. I can't see who else that they're going to be able to go for, unless, like you said, somebody who's massively out of favour, like a Rodrigo at Real Madrid. Like they need to go for try and get players who are out of favour,
Listen,
which generally Liverpool don't want players who are out of favour. There's generally a reason why.
well, Rodrigo, who hasn't scored in 30 games for Real Madrid, is not the answer to your problem, whereas Semenyo would be. And he has publicly kind of flirted with the idea of it. So I think, I know where I'd be hedging my bets if I was them. On the knock-on effect, if that Semenyo did go to a Manchester City as an example, because they're also around, I'd be looking at picking up somebody from the periphery of the Man City squad to come in rather than Rodrigo. I think that would be absolute carnage and a ridiculous idea. We move to what for me is not probably the most important game of the weekend. Burnley host Fulham, 5:30 kickoff. This is for me all or nothing for Burnley. I think if they lose this, they fall into the same category as Wolverhampton Wanderers. I know that sounds far to it, but this is a massive game. Fulham again, up and down, hit and miss. I think this is one of those games. I think you mentioned it last week about kind of when you're in the change room and you've got the league up and you kind of pick the fixtures that you kind of target. This for me is the one for Burnley. It turns around the run of form. It drags everybody back in the mix. This is it. Shit or bust for Burnley.
I agree. So, I mean, I've just refreshed the table and now it's just updated the last game week. So my previous comments have been 4 points. Without a day, it's 5 points. I agree with you. Burnley, I mean, they're formed. They're not on par with Wolves. I get what you said. They're not on par with Wolves, but soon they're going to be so far cut adrift that it'll be done for them as well. West Ham have picked up. Yes, they're only 3 points ahead of Burnley, but they've picked up, and you could say I could see them staying up. Forest have done the same. Leeds have done the same. Fulham had a few easy fixtures, but put those points on the board, and you could say all of those teams above them. You can say I can see them staying up. I just can't see that with Burnley. Unless they do something miraculous in January, I just don't think they've got the goals to stay in the Premier League.
No, definitely not. And again, you just take the last 5 games as a snippet. West Ham have picked up 6 points, which has taken them from beneath Burnley to above them. Nottingham Forest have picked up 9 points, which again takes them from beneath Burnley to above them. Leeds have picked up 4 points, which takes them 5 points clear, and obviously Fulham have picked up 6 points. So actually 5 games ago, this was quite tight. Now it's not, and now they've got a problem. And even you can go one higher. Brentford have picked up 6 points in that same period that both Burnley and Wolves have picked up none. So this is absolutely all in, blockbuster, has to be a win. And I am actually going to fall on the side of Burnley with the 2-1 win, purely based on the fact that it's at Burnley and how important it is to them. They cannot afford to lose this game.
I have gone for Burnley 1, Fulham 2 on the basis
that they're a better team.
Not even just that they're a better team, as in even when they've lost games, Fulham, they've scored. Who's it? Man City was 5-4, and what a game! But they looked like they had creativity, and Burnley just haven't got that. And I know it means effectively that they're down. I just don't think they've got the quality to hurt them. The only way I could see Burnley winning is if they score a goal and just defend for their lives. I can't see them scoring any more than one in most games, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's clearly been a problem for them.
I think it's a shame though, isn't it? Because we're effectively before Christmas, and we could have after this game with 2 teams sealed for relegation.
Yeah, I don't think it's that different to most years, mate. Again, last year we could have predicted the bottom 3 very early on. When was the last time there was? So yeah, I take your point. I think this year, the thing that makes it okay is because Sunderland have come up and done what they've done, that we're talking about a new team in the mix rather than the 3 that came up. So for me, I'm just going to cling on to that as being the interest factor. And actually, I think there could be 5 teams that could fill that 3rd space, which actually is probably all we can ask for in the relegation race at the moment.
Yeah, we've just got to hope, haven't we, really, that one of the teams from West Ham, Forest, Leeds, Fulham, possibly Brentford. Don't think that they're in it, but that one of them don't just have a stinking run and end up just sealing that third place. Like we need to see some interest, because I think the Premier League's going to start running away from, as in at the top of the top four will start running away soon, and it'll just be, we're just getting, we're used to having a very exciting league, and I think the past few years that excitement has sort of dwindled away, and we just need to be careful that that doesn't happen again.
100%, yeah. The whole football world needs to be careful, because I think we're starting to, even the World Cup draw last week, the World Cup fixtures, the World Cup setup, the World Cup location. I've already mentally tapped out of the World Cup, and I love a World Cup, and how have I already tapped out of it? Like, that's nuts. The
That
Champions
draw,
League.
that
Yeah,
draw was an absolute joke, wasn't it?
but just,
It was. Not many people, not many. Everyone has said it, but you wouldn't have said it before. Thank God for Rio Ferdinand.
well, yeah. I mean, luckily I had to kind of skip the last half hour of it, which unfortunately was when they did the bloody actual pulling out the hats. But yeah, I thought it was, yeah, man. Like I say, disappointing. Disappointing that they've taken football over there as well. Like I say, I'm not going to stand up at 2 o'clock in the morning to be watching Iran play Morocco or whoever it is. Like, it's just not going to happen, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's going to pass me by a little bit, unfortunately. And that's, yeah, football needs to be careful that it doesn't start to eat itself.
It's definitely on the path to doing that, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so you've gone for a Fulham win. I've gone for a Burnley win, albeit not confident. They're definitely no spoilers. They're definitely not in my £5 challenge. We're not going to waste any time on Arsenal Wolves other than what you think Arsenal are going to win by.
Arsenal 4, Wolves 0. That game that Wolves played against Manchester United, was it yesterday or Monday, whatever it was?
Monday
That
night.
is, yeah. Man U looked half decent, but it wasn't because they were half decent. It's because Wolves are the worst team I've ever seen in the Premier League. Bruno Fernandes was clipping, he did it 3 times in about 10 minutes, clipping balls into the box, and they were made to look world-class crosses. None of the Wolves defenders, one went with their man, went to head it. Like, they were made to look world-class balls when they were actually just pretty basic chips into the box. And I was gobsmacked by how bad Wolves were. Like, it's one of the first time I watched them live. I know they've been bad, but I couldn't believe how poor they were. I thought, if you're a Wolves fan, like, how they had that many fans in the ground, I was gobsmacked.
Yeah, not good. I'm going Arsenal 3, 0. I think Arsenal are still missing some key players, which are going to make it a little bit more tricky than it might otherwise be. But yeah, again, spoiler alert, they're in my £5 challenge. Spoiler alert, they're probably my banker of the week. We just need to get some wins over the line, and I don't think Arsenal can kill us twice. Sunday, the new 2 o'clock slot, which I'm starting to get a little bit annoyed about, if I'm honest, having so many games on at the same time all of the time. But nonetheless, we start with an intriguing match-up, and one that Crystal Palace have done well in recently. Crystal Palace host Manchester City, 2 o'clock at Selhurst Park. With Arsenal having what we're deeming as a very easy home win, Man City really need this one, don't they, to keep the pressure on.
They do. I fancy Palace. I really do. Like, I think Man City to me are just so hit and miss. And when I look back past previous seasons, I think I said this quite a lot, and it just keeps coming true. Palace are Man City's bogey team. They hurt them a lot. This formation they play, with the 3 and then the wing backs, Munar's constantly bombing forward. I just don't think Pep has worked out what he needs to do against this team. My only worry is that when Palace have hurt them, normally Eze has played a big hand in it, and obviously he's not there anymore. But I mean, Yeremy Pino's doing bits in that midfield, so he can take that place. But I think Palace are a nice price here, even like to win or draw, quite a nice price, even money. I mean, I've gone for 2-2.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you've said. However, I think with Ismail Assar and Daniel Muniz both probably out.
Or are they?
So Muniz didn't play last week against Fulham. He's got a knee injury, not the rumoured incident that ended up being even Tony. I just don't see Nathaniel Klein as being the same level. And I think this is the problem for Crystal Palace, is that they've got a very, very good 11. But beneath that, they are weak. And I also would imagine that Manchester City and Pep Guardiola and Pep, he's number 2, Pep, loads of Peps, have had enough time to come up with a game plan for this. So I take on, and at Palace, love the fans, difficult game. So I haven't made this easy. I've gone Crystal Palace 1, Manchester City 2, just because I don't think Palace are going to be at full strength.
Yeah. No, so that's good reasoning. I'm going to stick with 2-2. Palace
Hmm?
just seem to have
Yep,
a knack of
completely.
getting something against
Yep.
City. But what I think's interesting about it is in previous seasons, a few years ago, we'd have said Man City will win this. They'll go on a run. They'll roll teams over. I think most weeks now you look at this and you don't tip City with confidence anymore, do you? Which I think tells you everything of where the league is.
I think we also have to just take a second to go, because I don't think enough people have got it. Crystal Palace are in fourth.
Good side, really good side.
Crystal Palace are in fourth. And I said this to Aston the other day. It's like, imagine if they'd have kept Elise and Eze, where they'd be as a team. Like, imagine if they kept those two there, they'd be in with a chance of winning the title.
Mm.
They're only just, what are they, 7 points off of Arsenal. Beat Manchester City at the weekend. You're only 2 points behind Manchester City. Do we have to start thinking about Crystal Palace as potential contenders for the Champions League, or do you think their squad size is what will let them down eventually?
You're definitely right around the squad size, and that's that. Teams like your Palaces. We mentioned Brighton before. It's the squad that hurts you, isn't it? If you can keep your 11 out, and you go back to Leicester winning the title where they put out the same 11, that didn't hurt them. If you can keep your 11 out, you've got chances. But when you're relying on your squad, and we mentioned Villa last week, that's what they've managed to do, haven't they? Their bench looks a lot stronger from previous seasons. I think you've got to have a squad to be able to have a good go at having top four, because if you've just got an 11, like you mentioned Nathaniel Klein, it's not even his abilities, his age now, isn't it? What is he must be 33, 34. Like, being able to swap Munoz for Klein, you're just not going to get the same output. So squad depth will definitely hurt them. So hopefully, I hope Munoz is back, because I think it makes the game even more interesting.
I don't think he will be, mate. I don't think he will be. My understanding is it's at least a couple of weeks.
Get some DP on it, mate. You'll be all right.
DP. The smell of DP, it takes me back. Nottingham Forest host Tottenham at the City Ground now. If this was at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, I think we'd all be lumping on Nottingham Forest. But Tottenham's away form is much better than their home form. Nottingham Forest are a little bit up and down. Obviously, the job that we're both big Sean Dyche fans. We're both obviously delighted with the job he's done. 9 points from the last 15 is fantastic. This is a winnable game for Nottingham Forest. This is the sort of game that they'll be looking at going, if we can win this, we just start to etch our way away from the bottom three, and we can start to look back up the table. That puts them on 18 points, back in the mix with Brentford, maybe looking at those lower level sort of European. So this is a big game for Nottingham Forest, isn't it?
It's a huge game for them. Like we spoke about the teams in and around the bottom, one of them just needs to win. And Spurs, a few weeks ago, with the position in the league, you might not have been sparkling, but you'd have gone, oh, this is a tough game. You now look at sort of the form and the way that the fans are complaining about Thomas Frank, and you go, this is a winnable game. I've gone 1-1 because I think this is a really tough game to call. Like I said, Spurs away form is better than when they're at home. When I've watched Spurs recently, I do think they're starting to pick up a little bit. I saw Xavi Simons doing a little bit, and I thought, oh, he's turning in a performance here. So I'm going to sit on the fence and go 1-1.
I've gone 2-1 to Forest. They seem to recently have had the kind of the mockers over Spurs. They've seemed to have got results even when they haven't necessarily. When they won both games last season, when probably, if you're on the balance of the game, shouldn't have home support. Obviously, Tottenham have just come off the back of a Champions League game as well, so we'll have, obviously, I appreciate Nottingham Forest have got a game to come in Europe as well, hence why it's a 2:00 kickoff on Sunday. I just think that Nottingham Forest will have a little bit too much at home. Spurs do look a little bit creaky still defensively, not entirely sure what their game plan is going forward, whereas Sean Dyche will have that Nottingham Forest set up to win that game of football. I think they'll just get a 2-1.
Yeah, I can see that. I think if I was going to go for a result, I'd probably go home advantage.
Yeah. Possibly, arguably, the biggest. I know we spoke about Burnley Fulham as being a massive game for different reasons, but the biggest game of the weekend is the Tyne and Weird derby. Sunderland host Newcastle for the first time. It feels like a lifetime. This is a really interesting game, isn't it? This is the one that I'm going to be focusing my attention on at 2:00 on Sunday. And again, I wouldn't argue whatever scoreline you give me. I wouldn't argue. I could see this going all ways. Sunderland have fallen off a little bit recently, so going to be looking for. But the atmosphere is going to be absolutely electric.
Hey, there we go. It absolutely is. So I've got my Newcastle. colours on at the minute as well. I think this. You mentioned sort of. I get the Burnley Fulham being having the most importance of the game. This is 100% game of the game week,
Yeah,
possibly of the season. The Sunderland fans have waited a long time for this Premier League fixture to come around, but also with the way that they're playing, when it's been a Premier League fixture for the past few years, and you go back a fair while, Sunderland have been poor, haven't they? They've been
yeah.
so poor. So it has just been a case of normally Newcastle turn up. This is going to be a completely different game. The Sunderland fans will be well up for it because they'll fancy turning them over.
Well, the beauty that Sunderland have is that this feels like the first time since Kevin Phillips and Niall Quinn where Sunderland are playing with a free hit. And what I mean by that is that there was a long time where Sunderland stayed up, but they only just stayed up. So whenever they were playing Newcastle, it was almost fighting for survival rather than Sunderland could come into this game knowing we want to win because we want to win. We want to win because we're looking at up the table. We're not worried about relegation. You know, they're already safe. You know, that's not even a debate. So they've got a bit of a free hit to just go and enjoy the process and go and, you know, whereas Newcastle got a bit more pressure on them because if Sunderland were to win, they'd be 4 points clear of them. They'd be, you know, Newcastle could be as low as maybe even 14th in the league if other results go their way. So you know, that starts to become a problem for Newcastle.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone for a Sunderland 1, Newcastle 2. So I've gone for a Newcastle victory just because it feels to me like Newcastle are starting to get a bit of form together, starting to put some performances together. You know, they've got a bit of rotation as well. You've got Barnes, Gordon. So I feel like the squad's getting involved, and I think this will just make them tick into gear like that. I can see. Can you see a red card in this game? I don't know what the odds will be, but I could see a red card in this game quite easy.
Yeah, so putting my cards in favour, I've gone 2-2. Because I just think it's like, again, like you say, goals, cards, incidents, drama,
If you
flare
want
ups.
a game to have a bet with a bet builder and have cards and go, this is the game, isn't it?
Yeah,
This is the
100%.
one. I'd imagine for that the bookies will be clocked on and cards will be very, very short, but this is the game, I think.
But if you know, I can imagine if you're watching the multi-view that they do now on a 2 o'clock on a Sunday, this is going to be the one that's the main screen for most of that. I just see there being at
Yeah.
corners, free kicks, tackles, you know, because see Granite Xhaka having around with Bruno or Joe Linton.
Elbows.
Yeah,
Yeah, elbows.
but
I think, I'm gonna put a shout out there for a card. I think nailed on card, Dan Burn. Dan
yeah,
Burn is a nailed on card. He's a Geordie, isn't he? It's going to mean the world to him this game. He'll go out there. He's going to nail someone in the first 10 minutes. He'll be carded.
yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Very exciting game. Yeah, very exciting game. Hopefully it lives up to expectation, and I'm sure it will because, like I say, you know, both teams need the win. You know, simple as both teams need the win. Talking about a team that needs to win, West Ham United host Aston Villa, who are absolutely on a tear up. Aston Villa won the last 5. I think they've won 8 of 9. The team you'd probably want to play least right now, especially when you're desperate for 3 points, because if Nottingham Forest were to beat Tottenham, like we've said they will do, that would put them on 18. That would take them 5 points clear of West Ham, and they then start to become in danger of being cut adrift as well. Again, depending on how other results go. So this is a massive home game for West Ham, and if this was to become very easy for Aston Villa and West Ham have suffered some heavy defeats at home, I can see the fans starting to turn again, and it, you know, there feels like a little bit of positivity coming out of West Ham. But if they get battered 4-0, I can see that becoming a problem again.
It's just on the cusp, isn't it? Like I get
Yeah,
the impression from the West Ham fans that they're pleased with the mini revival so far, but they're still worried. And like you said, one result could turn them. And I don't know if, I mean, it's obviously not a good thing, but Villa, the way Villa are playing, like, I mean, I've gone 0-2. These are one of Arsenal and Villa in my £5 challenge. They were the only two that I looked down the fixtures and went, they're the only two I can back with confidence. So I can't, if they do take a batter in, even if they just lose the game, West Ham fans just need to stick there. This isn't your game. This is not your bread and butter. The way Villa are
100%.
playing, you need to focus on other games. As long as you don't put in a stinking performance and the players, don't run. Like, I get it. If the players don't work hard and stuff, I completely get it. But I can't see you getting anything from this. So I just think it's not your game. So I've gone 0-2.
That's exactly the same as me. All I will say I completely agree, but all I'll say to that is that they play Manchester City after Aston Villa, Fulham, then Brighton. They're 4 tough fixtures over Christmas. The next game after that in January is Wolves. So they could go the whole of December, the rest of December without picking up any points, which could see them start to be cut adrift, and then there's a problem. My understanding is there's not a huge amount of money in the pot for January either, so there might need to be some imaginative transfer kind of movement. But
You
like you
could
say,
see Jared Bowen being sold, though, couldn't you? I mean, he might want
well,
out. I
we,
could
we
see him possibly going for 60 million and using that to reshape the team.
you go back to the Liverpool conversation that they're looking for someone off to play off that right hand side. Jared Bowen would fit the mould absolutely exceptionally. And I think everybody, even his West Ham supporting father-in-law, would understand that Liverpool is a step up from West Ham. I wouldn't blame him for it, especially in a World Cup year.
Yep, agreed.
But yeah, I've also gone 0-2. Brentford host Leeds, resurgent Leeds. Great comeback against Liverpool off the back of beating Chelsea. Changed their shape, changed their system. Dominic Calvert-Lewin back amongst the goals. A couple of weeks ago, this would have been a very comfortable home win, I think we'd all have predicted, but this now becomes quite an interesting game, and one that Leeds need to turn that home form into some away points.
I've been really impressed with Leeds. You know, he's the past 2 games he's gone 2 up top, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed that. He's gone
Yeah.
two strikers up front, and it's completely revolutionised them. They've gone from looking toothless to now, you know, banging it up to Calvert-Lewin. He looks to how, because he's got people around him, he can bring people into play. I've really liked what they're doing. For me, though, I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin, if you were to pick 2 centre halves to deal with him, I'd probably look at Brentford. So I just think the style of play might play into the hands of Brentford. So I've gone for a 2-1 home win. But Leeds, really pleased to see them sort of turn it around, because at one point, again, I really feared that they were going to be the next team just to be sucked in and keep getting battered every week. So yeah, really pleased that they have turned around.
I've also gone 2-1 Brentford. But again, like you say, exactly all of the above. I think, a good Leeds makes the league interesting. I think, again, a great place to go and watch football, Ellen Road. Great limbs, as they say, when they got the equaliser against Liverpool. I'm just not convinced by them yet. Like I say, hopefully they can start to go on a bit of a consistent. Well, they're still going to lose games, of course, but where they consistently perform at that level, then I can start to get on board. But for me, at the moment, Brentford, who also need the win as well, by the way, having a couple of tough defeats, are probably just a bit more organised at the moment. But like I say, the Leeds shape and the change of shape has been very interesting, and is definitely working. Even in the defeat to Man City, they made a great comeback, which obviously nearly got them back in the game. So yeah. Can they keep that going?
For me, promoted teams, if you can come up and score goals, you've got a chance. I
Yeah.
don't really care about how many you concede. Obviously, you don't want to concede 8 a game, but if you score some goals, you might concede 2, but if you can score 2, 3, not consistent, it's very hard, but you've always got a chance. And Leeds were getting sucked into that where they weren't scoring many goals. They were trying to nick a 1-0 here and there. I look at Burnley, I just can't see how you're staying in the Premier League with the goals. Leeds have started to score goals, and yes, they're conceding them, but you can work on that. I think it's easier to work on a defensive shape to stop conceding than it is to score goals in the Premier League. So yeah, for me, Leeds have got the best chance probably out of that bunch, because they've started to look threatening. Both flanks, down the middle, like they've got a lot about them going forwards at the minute.
And I have no real opinion of Daniel Farke in the sense that I'm not a fan or a hater. I just know that it would actually be great for him to get the perception off his back of he's a championship quality manager and a Premier League quality manager. If he could keep Leeds up, I think for him and the rest of his career, that'd be a massive boost. And I think we're all very quick to slag off managers, but it'd be great to have another manager that can actually keep a promoted team in the Premier League, because that has really been the holy grail for the last few years.
Well, he's also had that, like you said, that stigma against him, but the context to it is that he's done it with Norwich, and every time Norwich have come up, they've banked the 100 million and spent 10. Which that's what that club does. They go in, they collect the money and they're willing to yo-yo. But it's very hard for a manager to then come up like you have with Norwich, with the players at your disposal, championship players, and stay up. So it's a bit of an unfair stigma, isn't it? But I agree with you. It'd be great if he did manage to do that, because he's been dealt a bad hand, really, with other promotions.
Absolutely. Manchester United find themselves on Monday Night Football for the second week on the trot. Very nice too. At home this time to Bournemouth, which 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think we both probably would have gone one way, and we've both probably gone the other way. Now, Bournemouth have fallen off of a cliff, and Manchester United have had a bit of a turnaround. So for me, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud and confidently. I actually think Manchester United will win this game.
Do you want me to say 2-1, or do you want to say 2-1?
Take your pick. That's what I've gone for.
Yep, 2-1. I've gone for Manchester United 2, Bournemouth 1. Like you said, if this had happened 4 weeks ago, there's no way I'd have picked Man U. I really don't like after watching them against Wolves. I didn't think that they played well. It was just like they played well because they were allowed to play well. Like Cunha was standing in the midfield with no one around him, so everyone was going, "What a through ball by Fernandes!" And I was thinking, "It's not. It's not. You're being allowed to. Other teams will not allow Bournemouth. You know, within the poor form they are, they won't allow them to play like they have to. They're going to have to work a lot harder for this, but." I do feel that people like Mbeumo, Cunha, even Fernandes, as much as I dislike him, they're hitting a little bit of form, aren't they? They are, and I think that the defenders are getting a bit more confidence playing all the while, knowing that they've got a relatively comfortable goalie behind them. I think they are just picking up confidence with Bournemouth's poor form. I think you have to go home advantage.
Yeah, we have to remember that Manchester United have become another one of those teams that makes no sense. They last 5 games they drew at Tottenham, took a 97th minute equaliser. They lost to 10-man Everton. They then go and beat Crystal Palace in a great away victory. They then draw to West Ham, conceding the 90 whatever it was, and then they go and beat Wolves. So there's no. You're right in the sense that we both picked it from the same score, but there's no real evidence of this kind of amazing turnaround. I look at the back three that they used. You kind of think about. Shaw, Heaven, and Mazraoui as their back three in the last game. You look at that, you go, that is not going to win you many games. So we have to be a little bit careful of being on the Man United hype train. But going forward, your point about Lee scoring goals, Man United look like they can score goals again. Wemo and Cunha look like they're starting to find a bit of Manchester United form. Mason Mount's made a great comeback.
Yeah,
Obviously,
good shout.
Fernandes will always chip in. But for me, this team still needs a lot of work. It still needs a lot of improvement. Like I said, that defensive unit is miles off of what you would want from a team that's thinking about being Champions League quality.
It wouldn't surprise me if Lisandro Martinez comes back in. He's been on the bench for a couple of games now. It wouldn't surprise me to see him put back in. I mean, I actually like Luke Shaw at centre half. I think he does a decent job. But you're right. If you saw that back three of Shaw, Heaven, and Mazraoui, you'd be licking your lips at that, wouldn't you? Thinking we can get at that. So yeah, I think Martinez will eventually come back in. I'd probably expect him. It's Monday night, isn't it? So he's got a little bit more time to get fit and training as well. I think it's a good game though. I want to see Bournemouth bounce back. They are, with the exception of Wolves and Burnley, the most out of form team in the league from where they were. They've got to bounce back because if they lose another game and teams around them, they could be the ones looking over the shoulder.
100%, yeah. I mean, it kind of ties in with where Semenyo got injured, doesn't it? Like they've not been the same since. And Bournemouth are almost exactly that kind of played 15, won 5, drawn 5, lost 5, almost a 0 goal difference. It's -3, but I'm saying again, they can be anything, and it would not surprise me in the slightest if they turn up on Monday Night Football and gave Man United a real lesson in pressing and how to move the ball, and they ended up with a victory. But I haven't seen it for long enough for me to have to kind of fall on the side of Manchester United, who have managed to get over the line a little bit more frequently recently. And hence why we've both gone 2-1. But like I say, any of those results could happen. But it would be good to see Semenyo come back to form because we spoke about him, playing for a move almost. Since he's come back from injury, he's not been the same player for me.
No, he's not at all.
So, he needs a big game, and in front of the TV cameras, in front of the pundits, all that kind of stuff that comes on with Monday Night Football could be his chance to stake a claim for a big move somewhere. Okay, so we've gone for the same £5 challenge as well, Arsenal Villa.
So I have added. I didn't know where to go, but as we were talking through the results, I have also added Fulham into the equation. I do think that they'll beat Burnley.
Okay, so what does that take it up to?
So a fiver pays back £22.54.
Okay, well I'm just keeping Arsenal Villa £11.25, which is not going to retire on, but I need to get a win back over the line, and from the banker. I'm actually just purely because they are evens. I'm going to go Aston Villa over Arsenal, who are 1-8 on, which is not worth the energy. So I'm going to go for Aston Villa because they are currently sat at even somehow.
I have gone for Arsenal to have the most shots, most corners, both teams to score, and to be winning at half-time, full-time. And that pays back £24 off your £10, which I know it sounds like a lot, but I mean, after watching that Man United game, I couldn't believe how bad they were. And I think Arsenal are at home, aren't they? No. Yeah, Arsenal at home. I know they've got some defensive injuries, but they're not going to hurt them. So I can just, half time, full time, most shots, most corners, and both teams to score no.
No. Awesome. Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier that you've managed to upset the Liverpool fans. So if anybody else wants to get upset, where can they find us? Where can they reach out?
So social media wise, we are on X, we are on TikTok and Facebook. And if you want to listen to the episodes, go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube.
Awesome. Good work. Hopefully this week we can get a few more of them right, but no doubt we'll be back in next week moaning about the difficult game week again. Just remember, everybody, very difficult game week. As always, Fran, thank you very much, mate. Really enjoyed that, and I look forward to speaking to you next week, buddy.